365 days ago, I quit my corporate job to travel around the world full time. Now that we're at the 1 year mark today, I wanted to give an update on how I did it, how it went, and how you can be able to do this too, no matter what job you're working. My name is Brian Lubin. I made it to the top of a Fortune 500 sales organization, winning all the awards, doing all the things, and getting slotted for promotion after promotion. There was just one problem. I looked at my vice president of sales, who was 2 promotions ahead of me. That's who I would become if I completely kicked butt for the next 5 years. I would get promoted to that position. I looked at him and I realized that that was not a life that I wanted to live. I did not want to be him. I didn't want to have his family life. I didn't want to have his corporate life where he was traveling around full time. This is an exercise that I recommend everybody do that's very actionable today. Look at your boss's boss. If that's not somebody that you want to be, it's time to plan your escape. And escape I did. The way I was able to pull this off, long story short, was through 2 real estate strategies, 1 podcast strategy. The 2 real estate strategies were the house hack strategy and the co-living strategy. This is where I would buy a house, I would live in one part of it, owner occupant, and I would rent the other rooms out by the room. Easy enough. If you want more information on this and the details on this, step by step and all the numbers, you can check out the link in the description, which is w2toworldtravel.com. It's a 26-page free guide. I'll go through all the numbers and everything, but for the sake of the video and this episode, I'm going to keep moving forward. The podcast strategy that I did was called CPA, which is cost per affiliate. It was essentially an affiliate marketing strategy to where I would promote different services, different coaching products on my podcast, The Action Academy, where I talk about this stuff 24/7. People would sign up for Big Thing. I would get percentage of Big Thing. So that's how I was able to pull off $10,000 to $20,000 per month coming in passively for me. If you're interested in that, once again, you can check out the link in the show description. Another tactic I highly recommend for anyone leaving their job is to have an emergency fund cash cushion. I saved up 6 months of living expenses in cash so that when I left that job, I knew that I did have income coming in each and every month, but if it were all to disappear, I knew I had a 6-month runway to figure it out. This is very important because what it does is it prevents you from slipping into what's called a scarcity mindset, to where the stress and the anxiety takes over, and then that directly impacts your decision making. So when I had that emergency fund, I was able to have a couple of months where things were a bit slower, and I was able to not stress, have a calm, cool, collected mind, and be able to reevaluate and make pivots in my business to increase the income again. So that was the finances. Now I want to talk about the important stuff, which is the mental and emotional updates from the trip. I can now say without a shadow of a doubt, now that I'm at 1 full calendar year of being self-employed, no salary, no guaranteed income, I can tell you guys that it is worth it. It is worth it. It is worth it to make the big leap and to go pursue your dreams, to take the bet on yourself. If you're still watching this video up to this point, it means that you've already put thought into this, and this is already something that you've been thinking about deeply in your gut and in your soul, that you need to do your own thing. So we'll get into a travel update in a second, but first I really want to lead with more tactical advice for you to implement so that you can accomplish your dreams, so that your time isn't wasted watching this video. If you wanted to watch me travel, you can go scroll through my Instagram. It's all there, I promise you. So let's go back to the actual day that I quit my job. I did everything right on paper. I had the 6-month emergency fund. I had the side income coming in through real estate and online businesses that I could do anywhere in the world. What happens next? Do I just gracefully transition, hop on a flight, and pop up in Mykonos? Heck no! No! What actually happens instead was 3, count them, 3 separate panic attacks where I thought I was going to go to the hospital. If any of you guys have suffered from anxiety before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, to where you can literally feel it in your body. Your arms going numb, you have tingles and cold sweats all over, and you're literally thinking that you're having a heart attack. I left my job in March, which is when this video is posting, but I didn't actually begin traveling and flying to Greece until July. So I had this 3-month gap in between, which is not something I would recommend. All I was doing was just doubting myself. I was so full of negative self-talk, saying, dude, you're so stupid. This is the worst idea ever. Here's all the things that are gonna go wrong. You're never gonna make money. You're gonna go broke. You're gonna have to come back with your tail between your legs and start from scratch all over again. So I have a bit of tactical advice for you guys to implement so that this doesn't happen to you. I do not wish this on my worst enemy, and I want you to learn from my mistakes so that you don't have to go through this. Here's 3 practices that I implemented that helped me reduce the anxiety and remove the panic attacks as I transitioned from W2 to entrepreneur. The first is a process called fear setting, made popular by Tim Ferriss. So what Tim does is he will write down all the worst case scenarios, everything that could possibly go wrong. You get sick, you get robbed, you lose your luggage, you lose your phone, everything bad that could possibly happen on your trip or in your future endeavors when you're making the big leap, right? So you write them all out, and then what you're gonna do afterwards is you're gonna write the probability of that thing happening. You put 10%, 12%, 50%. And then on the other column, you're going to put, what are you going to do when that thing happens? When you look at it all on paper, you're like, this is ridiculous. First off, none of this stuff is actually going to happen. Second off, if it does, I already have a tactical game plan to overcome it. Make sense? The second part is to have a really clearly defined vision that you're running towards. You don't want to run away from a job. You don't want to escape. What you want to do is you want to run towards something. So I had such a clear vision, such a strong why of traveling around the world, of fulfilling my passion, of doing something that I'm going to remember at 75, 80 years old, to be able to tell stories about, that I was like, this is worth it. This is worth going through the fear. This is worth going through the uncertainty. I've got this. The third process that I implemented was being surrounded by peers and mentors that were on the same journey as me. I had a lot of mentors that had already quit their jobs and left, and they were able to walk me through this process because they went through it themselves. I also had a lot of friends that were in the same journey and they were trying to do the same thing as me. They were able to empathize because they were in the same process. So all these people reminded me of what my goal was, reminded me that I was doing everything right, and reminded me that I freaking got this. I can pull this off and make it happen. So those are the 3 things that I would recommend. After implementing these practices, I finally regained my confidence and I did the thing. I fulfilled my dream, made everything come true. I hopped on the one-way flight, went to Greece, lived there for a month, lived in Europe another 2, lived in Brazil a couple of months, Latin America. Then I finished my trip in Singapore, totaling 19 countries in 2022, full-time for 7 months. I did it. I can tell you guys, after a year, if I am not bankrupt by this point, I gave it my best shot. Okay, if I could travel around the world and do bougie stuff and live in Mykonos and Santorini for a freaking month and still not be bankrupt and still pull this off, I guarantee you can. I promise you. The total cost ended up being about $72,000, which breaks down to about $10,000 per month of living in really nice locations, being in great hotels, great Airbnbs, eating out breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. I don't think that I could have spent more money if I tried. So now I want to end this video with 3 last takeaways that I learned from successfully leaving my job, jumping into entrepreneurship, and accomplishing my big goal. The first lesson that I learned was you need to slow down before you speed up. There's 2 different phases of life that we're supposed to pivot between that a lot of us are unaware of, which leads to burnout. Those 2 phases are navigation and acceleration. When you see a cheetah out in the wild, is it running 24/7? No. It spends half its time stalking the prey, planning and maneuvering. Then as soon as it sees its prey, it launches and it starts sprinting. That's the best way to operate our lives and businesses, is instead of being full throttle 24/7, you need to have periods of margin and rest to where you can take time to plan what's going to be your next thing. This is why whenever you come back from a vacation for a week or 2 and you go back to work, you feel so rejuvenated and you have all these creative ideas, right? So this is what I did, because now I'd accomplished my goal of leaving the job and I was like, what's next? What is my life about? What's my purpose? What's my identity outside of being a corporate worker and a sales guy? All right, this is stuff that you need to think about, and you need to allow yourself time to relax, rest, slow down, and do the thinking. Let the thoughts come to you before you mash the gas again. So that's the first thing I learned. This is what I did over a period of 4 months until I finally figured out what my new purpose in life was, which was to help 1 million people leave unfulfilling jobs for a life of fun, fulfillment, and freedom. And that led to the birth of my new business, the Action Academy Community, which is a mastermind of people that are all actively trying to leave their job. So the second lesson I learned was I needed to remove my identity of hard work equaling success, because I realized that you cannot hustle and grind your way to $1 million per year owning your own business. You need to utilize leverage of other people, of technology, of content. You need to get away from the idea of working every single day, working every weekend, working 90, 100 hours a week. That's not the goal. The goal is to work efficiently, not hard. And that's what I had to learn while I was traveling, because I was growing this business as I was exploring. So I had to allow periods of margin and fit my work into a small frame of time. And I still made more money than I did in corporate America. The third and final thing I learned from my trip around the world is that there is no one-size-fits-all correct answer. There is no right or wrong. There is no light and dark. This is called binary thinking, where there's only 2 options. What really exists in life is a lot of margin in between, a lot of gray area, because there are so many different countries and cultures that do things differently than America does it. And I was able to take bits and pieces from each one of them and say, okay, this is a different way of thinking. I appreciate this. Let me try this out and see if this works a little bit better for my personal style. And this is the spice of life. It's just trying out different things and figuring out what fits your style, what fits your perfect life, what fits your goals. That's the secret to all of this, is there is no one size fits fits all. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was my 1 year update of going from wantrepreneur to entrepreneur, leaving that job and doing what I want, when I want, with who I want. Once again, if you're interested in more details about this, you want to read it in writing, 26 pages, you can go to W22 World Travel, go in the show description, click the link, and you will get a copy of that book 100% free, and that will go into way more detail, and it has a bunch of resources there for you. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel, and I hope that you'll be listening to me a lot more.